Welcome and thank you for standing by. Today's conference will now begin. All lines have been placed on a listen-only mode until the question and answer session. At that time, if you would like to ask a question, you would press star 1 and record your first and last name. Today's call is being recorded. If there are any objections, you may disconnect now, and I will turn the call over to Mr. Clint Hastings. Thank you. You may begin.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us, and congratulations on being a FY 2019 CDFI program or NACA program FA recipient. My name is Clint Hastings. I'm a Senior Portfolio Manager here at the CDFI program and NACA program, and I'm joined by Andrew Slack, Associate Program Manager, and our Program Manager, Amber Bell. I'm going to make a few brief prepared comments today and go over a handful of slides in our presentation that's available on our website. However, I'm going to keep it brief and make you all the stars of today's webinar because we're really here to answer the questions that you have. Before I get started with my prepared remarks, I do want to show you where you can find this presentation and a template assistance agreement if you've not received your agreement yet. If you go to the CDFI Fund website, up the top you can go to Programs and Training, Programs, and then either the CDFI program or Native Initiatives. Scroll down a little bit on the page, click on Step 4, Closing and Disbursement, and you'll land on a page where you'll see Getting Acquainted with Your FY 2019 FA Award Assistance Agreement. That contains all of the slides and more that I'll be presenting today. And then you'll see FY 2019 FA Assistance Agreement Template. Most of you should have received your assistance agreement at this point. However, there are some organizations that will not have received it. Primarily, those groups will be organizations with 9/30 fiscal year end dates or organizations that don't have 100% matching funds in hand at the time of award announcement. So the first thing I'm going to discuss today is the new PG&M that's introduced in FY 2019. This PG&M 5-1 is applicable to all FA recipients this year. There are two components to this PG&M. The first one is a requirement that you expend 90% of the initial FA payment within the first year of the period of performance. The second component of this PG&M is that you expend 100% of the total award by the end of the period of performance. Sure, and if you are unclear about what expend means, that basically means use the FA award in one of the eligible activity categories. So, providing financial products, financial services, loan loss reserves, capital reserves, or development services. Next, if you haven't received notification that your assistance agreement is available, I'm going to encourage you to do a couple of things. First, check your spam filter. We do get reports that the notification emails get caught up in that fairly often. And if you check that and you haven't received it, you can check the award record in AMIS. It would be attached in the Notes and Attachment section. Or if you're in one of the groups that I discussed earlier, you have a 9/30 fiscal year end date, or you don't have 100% matching funds in hand, you would not have received this email, but it should be coming within the coming weeks. Up next, I just want to provide a brief high-level overview of the process that we go through in order to execute each assistance agreement. As I just discussed, you'll receive a notification email that the agreement's available. You'll log into your AMIS account. You'll access the award record, review the assistance agreement, become familiar with all of the terms and conditions, the PG&Ms, verify that the data in the cover page is correct. At that point, once you're comfortable signing the agreement, you'll do so electronically on the award record. If you're an unregulated financial institution, you'll also attach a certificate of good standing that's been dated within the past 180 days. And then once it's submitted, we'll undergo a brief compliance review. Assuming there are no issues that are discovered during that compliance review process, the CDFI and NACA program manager will countersign the assistance agreement. You'll receive a notification via email that the countersigned cover page is available in AMIS. And then typically, this isn't a hard and fast rule, but we've experienced that recipients receive their initial payment within 1 to 2 weeks of receiving notification that the assistance agreement has been signed. Again, that's not a hard and fast rule, and the holidays could slow things down, but that's typically what we experience. The next thing I want to touch on is the assistance agreement cover page. It's really important that this document matches correctly with, your organization's legal name. We don't want a DBA if that's not where you're legally incorporated under. Make sure the address is correct, the DUNS, the EIN. It's really easy to correct this if there's any information that's not accurate. So please let us know via service request if you notice any errors on the cover page. The second half of the cover page will have some information on subsidiaries if you're a bank holding company recipient. And then we'll have information on each individual type of financial assistance award you received. So the base FA, PPC FA, DFFA, and HFFI FA awards will be broken out on this line. And then if you're a core recipient, these first 3 boxes would indicate that matching funds are applicable. Or if you're a CECA or NACA recipient, they would say not applicable. The HFFI FA matching funds cell should always say not applicable. Then below, you'll see your initial payment amounts and the forms of award. The initial payment fields are based on information that your organization submitted in its application. If you are going to have any issues expending the initial payment within the first year of the period of performance, please let us know via service request. You can submit a modification request. It's much easier to make a change with regards to the initial payment before you sign the award than after. And along that line, if you discover any issues, any errors in your assistance agreement, or if you feel that there may be challenges in satisfying any of the PG&M benchmarks in your assistance agreement, you are eligible to submit a modification request prior to executing the award. We do have a deadline for organizations that have already received their assistance agreement of December 20 to make that request. So please do so in a timely fashion. If you haven't received your assistance agreement yet, we will extend that deadline out. So, don't fret if you haven't received your assistance agreement and you think you may need to request a modification. One last note on that front, just because you request the modification doesn't mean we're going to approve it. We've got a policy that we follow, so it is up to our discretion to approve or deny each modification request, but we'd much rather you submit a request and get clarity around the requirements in your assistance agreement. And please don't sign the agreement if you think you're going to submit a modification request. Submit the modification request, and so long as you've got a request pending with us, the applicable deadlines regarding, signature and execution dates will be kind of told, and we'll make sure that we get you an answer before you have to sign the agreement one way or the other. So on that note, that ends my prepared remarks. I'm going to open it up for Q&A via telephone.
We will now begin our question and answer session. If you have a question, please press star 1 and record your first and last name. We will wait for the first question. Our first question comes from Linda Izuka. Linda, your line is open.
Thank you. This is Linda Izuka from the Hawaii Community Reinvestment Corp. Thank you for this opportunity.
Sure. What can we help you with today?
Okay. I have my assistance agreement, and I've reviewed all the terms I'm comfortable with. I've downloaded a certificate of good standing. I see that an opinion of recipient counsel is attached, yet I don't see that that's checked as a required document. So can you tell me a little bit more about that document and its applicability?
Yeah, absolutely. The short answer is that it's not applicable unless it's checked in the table of contents. So on the table of contents page, there's going to be, the table, and the only documents that you're required to return to us, or the only sections of the assistance agreement that are applicable, are those sections with an X next to it.
Okay, thank you for the short answer. Can you tell me in what situations would that be required?
Typically, it's going to be if an organization has a award in the form of an equity investment.
Oh, okay, great. Okay, thank you very much.
Oh, you're welcome.
Our next question comes from Kira Taj. Your line is now open.
Hi, I'm calling from Children's Investment Fund in Massachusetts. And sorry, I was just requesting the question, so maybe this person just asked this. I was wondering about the deployment issue that was raised in the beginning. So can you just explain, it looks like, is this a new stipulation that 90% of the initial payment needs to be expended, and what does that mean exactly?
Yeah, it's a new PG&M this year, and basically it just means that you need to expend the initial payment in an eligible activity category within the 90% of the initial payment within the first year period of performance. And the initial payment amount that's going to be appearing in your assistance agreement is based on the information that your organization submitted in its application.
Yeah, right. So go ahead.
So this is Amber Bell, just to expand on that and how it fits in with the rest of the PG&Ms. So all of the other PG&Ms, 1.1 through 4.1, basically relate to all of the activity on your balance sheet. So say you had the PG&M 1.1, which is increased volume of activity. That's all of the money on your balance sheet. Those are the loans that you make. This 5.1 specifically relates to the FA award. It's just the FA award dollars. So how you get an award, you have to expend those monies into one of the 5 eligible FA categories. It just doesn't mean that you can't have it sit on your balance sheet in account collecting interest. You have to either put it towards a contra asset account like loan loss reserves, or make a loan that you have targeted with these FA dollars. For example, of 2 of the eligible 5 categories.
Right. So if we were thinking of using a lot of that for some of our training and development services work, we would have to expend that amount within that year one. We couldn't split it evenly, for example, over the 3 years, or we really do have to look at that.
You certainly can. You just tell us that you would like a reduced initial payment, and then you can split it up into evenly over the years.
Got it.
We're not saying that you have to spend your full award in the first year. We're saying whatever amount of the award that you requested to spend in the first year, that you spend it within the first year.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, so if you're uncomfortable with that amount, just send us a service request saying, I'd like to modify PG&M 5-1 and provide us with a dollar amount that you're comfortable with.
Okay, thank you.
Our next question comes from Joanna Moore. Joanna, your line is open. You may ask your question.
Hi, my name is Joanna Moore with Communities Unlimited. I actually have a couple of questions.
Sure, go ahead.
My first question is, after we submitted our application, we realized that we had left off an older grant that could have been used for match, but like we included a newer one on it. Can we substitute a newer one, the newer grant for that older grant so we can use the newer one on next year's application?
Great. So this is Amber again. So the CDFI fund, as we put out in some of our guidances, we aren't responsible for accepting your individual grants. So, for example, we don't say, okay, we've reviewed all of this documentation and therefore this grant is now attributed to the fiscal year 17 FA award or the fiscal year 19 FA award. What the guidance says is that when you submit your matching funds documentations to us, that you're saying, yes, we have these things and we have enough match to cover this award and every other award that we've ever gotten. We're not going back and double checking that you submitted this in this year or this year, but we do, however, actively audit all of our awards, and when we do request that material, we expect that you provide us with the matching funds documentation. So the short answer is you can switch out grants that you use as long as you have a very active mechanism for identifying which grant is matching which award, so that you can satisfy all of the federal requirements and that it's not being used for multiple awards.
Okay. And that kind of ties in with my second question, which I think you covered it, but I'll just ask it to be safe. We had also reported more match funds than we needed for the grant that we were awarded. So with what you were saying, the ones that's in excess of what we need for that award we can use for the next year because as long as we're showing that which ones it's being used towards.
Yeah, internally, for example, you gave us $1 million in match grants that were in hand, matching grants. And we only gave you an award of $750,000.
Right.
You then in-house say, okay, we're using grant A, B, and C to match the $750,000. We at the CDFI fund are not telling you which grants we used.
Okay. And so we don't have to do anything to like release them or anything. It's just on our end, just to. If when we're audited, just to show this was used for 19 and this was used for 20.
Correct.
Right, okay. And then just to clarify, to make sure that what you use in 19 and 20 fits the matching funds window for the corresponding year.
Right.
Yeah, it has to apply to all the rules for each funding round.
Right. We understand that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next question comes from Bill Thompson. Bill, your line is open.
Hi, this is Bill Thompson from the Massachusetts Housing Investment Corporation. I have another question about matching funds. The question is, do we need to have all matching fund grants in hand before we sign the assistance agreement?
Yeah, so you aren't going to get your assistance agreement from the CDFI fund until you've demonstrated that you have 100% match in hand for the amount of the award.
Yeah. All right. I'll just have to just double check and see because
If you have questions on this, you can submit a service request and we can individually get back to you. We anticipate sending out notifications to all the groups that didn't have 100% match in hand, to give them instructions on how to provide that match. But per the NOFA, all matching funds have to be received that were committed, have to be in hand to the CDFI by January 15th and have to be submitted to the CDFI fund by January 31st.
Thank you.
What, 2020?
2020, right.
Understood. Thank you.
And just to piggyback on what Amber was saying, you should not have received an assistance agreement if you had outstanding matching funds that were still in the status of committed.
When you say receive, do you mean it shouldn't also be an AMIS, or it shouldn't receive an email?
It shouldn't be in AMIS.
Okay.
So if you're seeing it in AMIS, then we have completed the matching funds review that would support issuing you an assistance agreement to sign.
Okay.
Our next question comes from Laura Davison. Laura, your line is open.
Yes, I'm from Credit Union, and my question was the email that says our agreement is ready. I have not that. So should I be checking? I looked in my spam folders, don't see it.
Yeah, sure. Could you repeat the name of your organization again?
Athena Federal Union.
Sure. I'm not familiar with the specifics of your organization's assistance agreement, but it's possible if you all didn't submit 100% matching funds that were in hand as of the award announcement date that we haven't created the assistance agreement yet. If you want to check to see if the assistance agreement is available, you can log into your AMIS account, go to the award record, and then go to the notes and attachments section, and there'll be a PDF there if it is available. And if it's not there, it just means that we haven't created it yet. But I can double check to see if it has been created or if it hasn't been created, the cause or the reason for that, and then shoot you an email and let you know what the situation is.
Okay.
Our next question comes from Ishmael Velasquez. Ishmael, your line is open.
Thank you. I'm calling from Puerto Rico. Our institution is a credit union called Seno Gandia. And I just at this point need to see how can we get the presentation.
So you're wanting this PowerPoint document that I've got up on the screen right now?
Yes, please.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. CDFI Fund website, go to Programs and Training, Programs, click on CDFI Program. Go down here to the bottom, or near the bottom, click on Step 4. And then it's going to be this one right here, getting acquainted with your FY 2019 FA Award Assistance Agreement.
Hey, got it.
Okay.
Great, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Our next question comes from Sharon Hall. Sharon, your line is open.
Thank you. My question was previously answered.
Those are our favorite type of questions. Thank you.
And for our next question, I have Allison Yones. Again, if you need to withdraw your question at any point in time, you may press star 2 to do that. Allison, your line is open.
Hi, thanks. This is Allison Yones with Latino Credit Union. I just wanted to confirm, I think you said this earlier, but if we have appendices and schedules that are in our award but do not apply to us and do not have an X in the table of contents, we can disregard them. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. We generate each document from a standard template, and so if the section is applicable to your agreement, you'll see an X here over in this column. The vast majority of these are going to be blank for our recipients. So yeah, you can ignore those documents, those schedules, if they don't have an X next to them.
Perfect. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
Our next question comes from Polly Logue. Polly, your line is open.
Hi, Amber and Clint. It's Holly Logue. I have a matching funds question. So this year, it was a new requirement. This is for depository institution holding companies and insured depository institutions. This year, under matching funds, there was a new requirement that if you used retained earnings since inception, there was a two-pronged test where you also had to demonstrate that you increased deposits or loans by an outstanding amount equal to the amount of the retained earnings committed. and the assistance.
So Holly, it's not a new requirement. It was just more transparent.
Okay.
But it's been existing since we've used matching funds since inception for banks or bank holding companies.
Well, it says that we have to, the increase must occur by the end of year one of your performance period. So my question was, and you check that on call report, so if the 12/31 call shows an increase by that amount over the third quarter call, I'm assuming we've met that requirement then, and that's the end of that? And do we have to document that to you in any fashion, or?
No, we do all of that ourselves. We pull the call reports ourselves, and we do it on a quarterly basis. And then for example, if your group has received their assistance agreement, they've already met that requirement even if they were using since inception. If they haven't received it, we'll pull the call reports after December 31st. And then we'll automatically check every quarter until all assistance agreements have been issued.
Okay, and one more question on the matching funds, Amber. Within AMIS, on the matching funds used section on the awards page, I'm a little confused by the dollar amount listed in the various accounts. I don't see a coordination there between that and the award amount.
Why don't you submit that via service request?
Okay.
I'm not sure if that's a universal challenge, and we'll look into it for that particular group.
Got you. And my final question is there a deadline for signing the assistance agreements? I know the deadline is December 20th for requesting amendments, but is there a deadline for actually executing the assistance agreement?
Yeah, so for the organizations that have already received the assistance agreement, it's in the transmittal letter. Yeah, if you're an organization that still has outstanding matching funds and we're going to be doing that check, obviously that deadline is going to be, told subject to the matching funds review.
Okay. Thank you.
Our next question comes from Kira Taj. Kira, your line is open.
Hi, thank you. Calling from Children's Investment Fund. Again, just had another question. So we are a newer CDFI and now have received 2 awards, and so we're just sort of mapping out the overlapping years of performance for both. So I just kind of wanted to clarify that each award is evaluated sort of on its own, in its own terms, but basically when there's a year where we have a similar kind of goal, we're just trying to make sure we reach the highest of those 2 performance goals, if that makes sense. Just wondering if there's any guidance or advice just about kind of making sure we're mapping and meeting our goals with overlapping awards.
Yeah, so does this happen to be PG&M 1-1 that's specifically applicable to your organization?
Yeah, it is 1-1.
Yeah, so for the overlapping years, it's essentially going to be the greater amount of the 2 figures. However, for example, let's say you've got an FY18 award and an FY19 award, and the second year period of performance of that first award is like, let's say you projected $4 million overall. So the first year benchmark would be $1 million. The second year benchmark would be $2 million. And the third year benchmark would be $3.6 million. And then let's say you came back and you got the FY19 award and the projection is, let's say, $6 million. So that first year benchmark would be $1.5 million. The second year would be $3 million. And then the third year, I believe, would be $5.4 million.
Yep.
So in that second year of overlapping data for the first assistance agreement, that benchmark of $2 million does not mean you've got to close $2 million to satisfy that assistance agreement. It means that would need to deploy the difference between like the first year and the second year of that agreement, which would be $1 million.
Yep.
However, that second assistance agreement, you've got $1.5 million for the overlapping year.
Right.
So if you would need to deploy $1.5 million within that period of performance to be in compliance with both assistance agreements.
Yep. No, that's helpful. That's how we're thinking about it, but just wanted to double check. Thank you.
Yep.
Our next question comes from Ryan Dedad. Ryan, your line is open. Ryan, your line is open.
Hi, Ryan. Are you on mute? All right, well, let's move on to the next call. And Ryan, if you are able to get back on, just ask your question again and get back in the queue, and we'll get to you later.
Our next question comes from Linda Azuka. Linda, your line is open.
Thank you. Linda Azuka, Hawaii Community Reinvestment Corp. I think this was covered just briefly yesterday on the call, but I want to just make sure, since it's not delineated within the agreement, I want to talk about the authorized technical assistance activities, the difference between what was requested in our application versus what we hope to use our award for. So let's say we requested $95,000 for salary and fringe, and let's say another $10,000 for travel and training. But let's say we're not interested in traveling and training, and would rather reallocate that to salary, just as an example. What's the protocol around some of those changes?
Yeah, that's pretty straightforward. And just as a disclaimer for other folks on this call, we're specifically discussing technical assistance awards right now. But essentially, you're eligible to move funds around within your TA agreement so long as you are expending the funds in an eligible TA activity category. So you don't need to provide us any advance notice. You'll just make that decision for what's best for your organization, again, assuming it's one of the eligible activity categories. And then when you're submitting your, uses of award report, you'll let us know which of the eligible categories it was expended in.
Yeah, and this is Amber. Just to, I think, clarify, one of the key differences between fiscal year 18 TA agreements and fiscal year 19 is that fiscal year 18 had a TA budget where it specified how much money you were going to use in each category. You'll notice that schedule is gone. So that schedule is no longer there. You just have to expend the funds in an eligible category. And that also goes for FA. FA, there's no budget, quote unquote, specified. You just have to spend the FA dollars in an eligible category, and then you use the report to the CDFI fund on how you use those specific dollars.
Yeah, and there are, just one last point, there are some sections or subsections of the general terms and conditions of the agreement that specifically outline kind of, your ability to transfer funds in between eligible categories. So take a look at the general terms and conditions, and that'll provide you with a little bit more specific guidance.
Are you referring to section 3.8?
Yeah.
Can you reference the, I don't see about transfer here.
That's because you don't have a budget. If you had a budget, you could transfer it, but you don't have a budget. You just have a TA award amount. So you just have to spend it in those categories.
Yeah, I probably muddied the water there. I would just...
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, good. So basically, make sure that they're authorized direct expense activities and spend as you see fit based on your needs.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
I want to make this as flexible as possible.
Well, isn't that nice? Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Our next question comes from Marianne Swees. Marianne, your line is open.
Thank you. I'm with the Leviticus Fund in New York, and I had a couple of questions regarding the goals and measures. First up, the 5.1, which Amber talked about earlier in the discussion. I understand the 90% of total FA payment to be dispersed within that first performance year, but could you explain how that lines up with like specific goals and measures for each of the award types? For instance, like if HFFI, our performance benchmark is like 33% within that first year, how do we just have to make sure that we're hitting the percentages for each of those different awards?
Yeah, let me pause you right there. So this is a really, really important thing that I want to highlight. All the PG&Ms except for 5.1 are money from your entire balance sheet. It's not necessarily our particular award. It's just dollars, financial products that you make. So you submit the TLR, the transaction level report, and in that report you report on all of the money that outflows from your organization. Those outflows are what you're going to use to specifically track the PG&Ms for 1.1, for the base FA, the DFFA, or disability funds, and the PPCFA and the HFFI. The difference between the disability, the PPC, and the HFFI and the base is you can't count the same loan for base FA as you do for PPCFA as you do for HFFI, but any base FA loan can be counted for all base FA PG&Ms. You just have to make sure that there's enough lending that kind of satisfies each one of those cumulatively. But the 5.1 goal is specifically only about the FA dollars itself. So in the assistance agreement, it doesn't specify this, but I highly recommend that you put the FA award amount into a separate account, and then every time a dollar leaves that account, that it goes to an eligible activity, and you can track that. That is essentially what we're trying to get you to do in PG&M 5.1. But for the other PG&Ms, it's whenever you make a loan or provide a development service or do something along those lines, those track to your PG&Ms for 1.1 through 4.1.
Okay, but in our case,
you could accomplish that without even drawing a dollar down from your FA award. You could still be satisfying your PG&Ms around 1.1 through 4.1 without even taking a dollar out of your FA award.
Okay, I'm not sure I understand that part, but I'll have to go back and research that a little bit. But again, we can't commingle things. Like we were a Capital Magnet Fund Award recipient, so again, that's a whole separate reporting requirement, and any loans that were made using those funds are distinct from anything from the base FA, correct?
No, you can use your Capital Magnet Fund loans to meet your base FA requirements.
Okay. That's not what I understood in when we did the TLR for last time.
The TLR, you don't submit your Capital Magnet funds, but on the back end, when the CDFI program, we combine your TLR and your Capital Magnet Fund reporting.
Okay.
We add them together to make your PPR, your performance progress report.
Okay.
When we double check those numbers.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Our next question comes from Ishmael Velasquez. Ishmael, your line is open.
Hello? Ishmael, we don't hear you.
All right, let's go on to the next question. If you're having issues, just indicate you'd like to ask another question, and we'll get to you later on.
Okay. Our next question comes from Frank Carvalho. Frank, your line is open.
Thank you. The first question is just to clarify. The contract says that we are going to get the full disbursement upfront. That means that within the first year, we would have to spend 90% of that initial disbursement, correct?
Correct.
All right. Where I'm a little confused or want a clarification is on the benchmarks. The total dollar amount of projected financial products that we had sent was $9 million. And on the benchmarks, 25 first year, 50% second year, and 90% by the end of the third year performance. My question is this, that projection was based on getting the full request, which was 700, and we only got 39% of that. Would that be a basis for us to ask for modification on the benchmarks?
You can always ask for a modification. You have to have...
And I'm sure that on the first year we will meet that benchmark because we just raised $1 million and we are about to raise another $2 million for financial products. It's just that we were projecting the full award in order to leverage even more and getting to the whole projected over the period of the contract with the amount that we received may be a little bit more difficult than initially anticipated.
Yeah, the guidance up front and when you apply says that we will not reduce your projections based on the award size, and that you should take that into account when creating your projections. So we try to be upfront about that. If you are concerned that you can't meet your projections, I would recommend you do not sign your assistance agreement, because as soon as you sign your assistance agreement, your ability to modify your award goes out the window. But do not sign your assistance agreement and submit a modification request. Everyone can submit modification requests. We may not accept it, but we will talk to you about it. We touch every single one of these, and we care and want you to be successful.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And at this time, I show no further questions.
All right, I'll check right now and see if we've got any questions that have been submitted in the chat. All right, looks like we've got a couple.
We do have one more that queued. Do we want to take it?
Let's hold off for just a second. We will get to that question, but we're going to respond to these chat box questions.
Sounds good.
This is from Sharon Hall. I'm assuming this is in regards to PG&M 5-1. The question is, this is a 3-year program that deploys loans over 3 years. How can we use funds in 1 year? If you are referring to PG&M 1-1 or 5-1, that initial payment amount, that 90% initial payment amount, is based on the initial payment request that was submitted in your application. And our guidance indicates that the initial payment amount is to be a dollar figure that your organization can reasonably expect to expend within the first 12 months of the period of performance. So that's kind of the basis of that PG&M and the requirement. If you're concerned that you won't be able to meet that requirement, please go ahead and submit a modification request via service request.
Yeah, and with regard to the deploy loans over 3 years, yes, this is a 3-year assistance agreement, and that is largely with regard to the base FA PG&M, so the increased volume of products and services, new geographic area, serve a new targeted population or new geography. Those PG&M benchmarks are over 3 years, and that is, again, we're investing in your organization, your balance sheet, and not just this is not just a project-based award.
Thank you. The next question comes from Kristen. She asks, for those who received FA awards, is there feedback or an evaluation available to see how our application was scored? No, we don't provide any type of debriefing statement for groups that actually receive awards. However, I would encourage you to go to our website and look at a document under Step 2, Apply. It's the number 5 right here, the Base Financial Assistance Application Evaluation Process. And in particular, one of the more important factors in your award sizing is your score in this section right here, Step 4, Policy Objective Review. It's not the entire basis for your award size, but it's very important. And so I'd review Step 4, and then we've got a little bit more information down here further in the document that includes the specific questions that are evaluated in Step 4. So generally speaking, if you received a smaller award, that may indicate some struggles in this step. Larger award, generally speaking, success in this step. And this is specifically applicable to your base FA award, not the supplementals. All right, let's go back to questions on the phone.
Our next question comes from Ronnie Broski. Ronnie, your line is open.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for your time and for all your efforts. I have a question about submitting any requests for modification through service requests. It's actually several questions related to that. One, can you provide some detail around the format in which you would like the request? Is it best to just say see attachments and produce a memo and attach a memo with all the details? 2, are those requests public? And 3, should it be one service request for each kind of theme of a modification request? For example, if there are two modification requests?
So let's start with your first question. A service request with a memo attached is fine. We don't really have a hard and fast, format that we prefer. Generally speaking, we want enough detail to be able to fully evaluate, your business justification for approving the request. So if it's a memo, that's great. If it's just the body of the text in the service request, that's fine as well. Really, we're more concerned with the substance over the form. But a memo is fine. We've had organizations do that in the past. Second, no, that's something that we would keep internally. And then 3, assuming this is a modification request for just one organization, but maybe they've got, I don't know if you're saying, we've got 2 PG&Ms that we'd like modified or what, but one memo covering all of the requests would be fine for the same organization, or if you'd prefer to split it across 2 documents, I guess that'd be fine as well. Just attach it to the same service request. That makes it much easier to track.
Yeah, and I think that building on what Clint's saying is that the most important thing for us is that we know what you want to get out of the service request. So if you say, hey, I'd just like to reduce my PG&M's pro rata, not as helpful. What's helpful is to say we would like our PG&M to be this number, and this is the reason because of this business justification that that we have, and we anticipated getting this award, not our award, somebody else's award, and it fell through, and so our circumstances outside of our control happened, and we need to reduce our projections. That is a business justification. I know I can track why it happened. But again, we'll reach out to you if we need additional information. But the clearer you are, the easier it is for us.
Got it. Thank you very much.
And at this time, I show no further questions over the phone lines.
Let's give it another minute or two. If you think of a question after we end today's presentation, or you feel that you need a little bit more detail to fully understand an explanation that you got today, go ahead and give us a service request in your Amos account. We'll be able to get back to you pretty quickly that way. But we've got more time allotted for questions and answers today.
And most importantly, that I would love for anybody listening to this call is do not sign your assistance agreement if you want to modify it. Once you sign your assistance agreement, I'm the program manager. I'm starting to sign assistance agreements today. So, as early as today. So make sure that you do not sign it, because we're not going to be double checking to see if you submitted a modification request after you signed your agreement.
We do have another question in queue from Linda Zuka.
Hi, Linda.
Hi. Quick question. So if we're ready to sign the agreement, I see that there's a digitally signed box. Do you prefer that this is digital or a wet signature and then uploaded via PDF, or can you tell me a little bit about that process?
Yeah, it's actually a requirement that you digitally sign, and we do not want a scanned copy of a wet signed assistance agreement. So you'll check those boxes, submit it, and then that'll give us a notification that you've electronically signed, and we'll begin our process of reviewing and then eventually countersigning the agreement digitally as well. And we'll create a new cover page that reflects the name and title of both individuals that signed the agreement, along with the timestamp saying it was digitally signed at X time of X day and X month.
So then the certificate of good standing would be uploaded to the notes and attachment?
Absolutely. Just make sure it's dated within the past 180 days.
Great. Thank you very much.
Yeah, please upload the certificate of good standing before you sign the agreement.
Ah, okay.
Because otherwise we can't process it, and then we're going to have to reach back out to you, and it delays the process.
Okay, thank you.
And at this time, I show no further questions over the phone lines.
All right, I'm not seeing anything else in the chat box. Give it one more minute. If we've got any further questions on the phone, go ahead and signal in. All right, great. Well, I think we're going to go ahead and end today's webinar. With that, really appreciate everyone's question. We are going to make a recording available at a later date. And if you've got any further questions, just shoot us a service request. Really appreciate everyone's time today. Thank you.
This does conclude today's conference. Thank you all for participating. You may now disconnect.